sin which he had sinned before. Therefore he conceived a thought against Adam. In such form he entered and seduced Eve. This is how it popped off. So many of you are thinking of Eve in the garden, and she's out there being stupid, and she got tricked by Satan, and she did. But like I said in my Bible studies, when Satan came upon Eve, friend, Satan had to have come upon Eve in a way where she was familiar with him. Eve is not a fool. Eve has seen God just like Adam. Eve has learned light and darkness just like Adam. They all are knowing. Eve is fooled and seduced by Satan because Satan came to her in the form of Adam. Whether he came as a shapeshifter and he came looking like Adam and she thought it was Adam, or whether Satan came into Adam. When God speaks to Satan being his nature being of the lower level, the devil is the evil spirit of the lower places. Whether that's in the earth or whether that's in the human body. The lower places are anywhere from here down. He's the evil spirit. And whether he came in the form of a person, like I said, or whether he came in the form of Adam himself, through lust, because this was the sin. It was through lust. And he comes to Eve and he convinces her that she should eat of this tree. And Eve, loving Adam so much and her loyalty to Adam, went against the law of God because she believed in her husband so much. He presented this option to her. And even though it was against what God told her, she allowed it to happen based upon her love and loyalty to her husband. And he understood his condemnation and the sin which he had sinned before. Therefore he conceived a thought against Adam. In such form he entered and seduced Eve, but did not touch Adam. So what this means is he entered and seduced Eve. There was some form of activity between them two. But he did not have that activity with Adam. So he could have entered Adam in the mind, in a mental state, but he did not physically have this with Adam. It was the act was done with Eve. And Eve alone. And it would be that he would conceive a child in Eve based upon this thought frequency or this energy and a genetic. How do I make this make sense? Many ancient systems, the Egyptians mainly, you can go to Babylon, but many of the Egyptian systems, even in Asia, when you see all of these temples and Angkor Wat and different parts of Cambodia and Asia, you see all these serpentine temples and all of these beautiful women dancing and doing tantric movements and all this type of stuff. Or even in Egypt with many of these phallic symbols and goddess temples. And even in Rome, a lot of the temples of Aphrodite and all of these different things where they would use a lot of sex to worship. What they would do, what was very pronounced in ancient times was you weren't really a powerful woman unless you could do things spiritually. Spirituality was the commodity. It was you and the gods that you have relationships with that made you somebody. Surely you could be a beautiful woman, but if you didn't have any power in spirit, you were just regular. You just want another pretty lady. But if you were a spiritually powerful woman, you were an asset. You were cared for. People needed you. And you would find in these temples that they would wait for certain star alignments. They would wait for certain times of the year for specific energies to be paramount, and they would look to incorporate sexual techniques with one another, male and female, to capture the light within these particular time frames and invoke them in themselves, and they would use that light to impregnate the women. And if you were a woman that could capture the light in her womb within these specific time frames and bring forth children, these children would be what they would consider gods in the earth and all these powerful people across the planet. This is what really made women queens and goddesses. So what we're seeing is something to that effect here in Scripture. Is this individual coming into Adam, whether in the form of invocation or whether in the form of shape-shifting and coming to Eve as a embodiment of Adam, but he's really not Adam. When you look at many ancient African cultures in different systems, you hear many stories of African people speaking to people coming from the stars, and then they would come amongst them, and they would get people while they're alone in the fields or whatever, and they would shift into these people. They would take on the look of these people, but they wouldn't be these people. It's the same thing going on now on certain levels, even on micro levels. You have people nowadays that mimic people. You got mimickers out there. You have people that have not taken the time to really know themselves. And the person you think you're seeing is not that person. You're seeing a representation of all the different people that they have come across along their way. They're just taking little attributes of those people that they admire, and they just piece it all together, and that's their mantle. That's who they are. That's their representative. Never once showing you actually who they are on the inside. Whether it's you're taking someone's mannerisms, or you're taking someone's speech, or you're taking someone's way, or you're taking someone's look, or the way you think someone thinks. You sit amongst these people long enough. You got people that sit amongst people long enough, and they take certain aspects of that people that person that they admire so much, and they become that person. This is that. Meanwhile, that person is authentically them, 1,000%. And this is why Scripture is saying he did not touch Adam. He did not annihilate Adam. He didn't want to stand in the totality of Adam because he needed Adam. A lot of times these people will annihilate you. They will become you, look to take on all of your characteristics, siphon it, and use it, and then look to get rid of you, and now they stand in the truth of you. But this individual didn't do that to Adam. Scripture speaks that he said, but he did not touch Adam. Why did he say that? Because he needed you to know the technique in which he did it with. He mimicked Adam for a season. He didn't want to be as Adam. He needed to mimic Adam to get into Eve, to conceive a child within Eve's womb. Entering himself into a game that he was never supposed to be a part of. Allowing him to now become Adam's God and to become heir to Adam's promise. He didn't have to get rid of Adam. He couldn't have gotten rid of Adam. If he got rid of Adam, game over. He just needed to mimic Adam for a season so that he could get someone into Adam's game that would mimic Adam and that would be a part of him. And that's what he did. Allowing him to become Adam's God. I told you, this thing is brilliant. You've got to put on the total armor of God. Many of y'all talk about the total armor of God, but you're only talking about one aspect. There are so many aspects to putting on the total armor of God. You don't even know. I don't even know. And you don't know them until you're posed with the responsibility of untangling them, of thinking. Like God said in the scripture, he said, apply your mind, Enoch. And the only way you'll be able to apply your mind is if you are put in those particular situations.